Jenn Gott is an author, fangirl, and jack of all hobbies. She lives in a fairy tale forest where, when she's not writing, you can usually find her playing life simulation games, sketching, or entertaining her rambunctious cat. Over to you, Jenn.
Thank you so much. So some quick context. Jane is a comic book artist who created a superhero team based off her childhood friends and the powers they'd all imagined for themselves. At the start of the book, she's asked to meet them, only to find them in full costume as those heroes. Before she gets any answers, though, some monsters appear, there's a fight scene, and one sci-fi zippy-zap later, she wakes up in what looks like their fictional headquarters, which is where this scene picks up. Does someone want to start telling me what the hell is going on here? Marie and Tony and Cal all looked at each other. Don't ask me, man, Tony said to Cal. You're the one that brought her here. He leaned back on the couch, crossing one leg over the other. He was holding an expensive-looking drink, and now he took a pull from it, ice cubes clinking. Cal rubbed the back of his neck, like a boy trying to work up the courage to ask someone to the prom. Technically, we all agreed. Only because you told us that their world was exactly like ours, Marie cut in, that we were all there. But this, she threw her arm in Jane's direction, is not the Jane I know. Jane flinched back under the burst of attention, everyone sneaking in a quick glance, sizing her up. It was clear from their expressions that they did not like what they saw. She felt disconnected from herself, seeing the lounge from a distance. She was small, bleeding into the edges. The light fell in the middle of the room, at Tony on the couch with his bright amber drink, at Marie in her monochrome of gray slacks and white sweater, her hair stained fluorescent by the light of the aquarium. Even Cal, in dark jeans and a muted t-shirt, seemed to gleam from his teeth and his sun-blonde hair. Here, in this setting, they felt larger than themselves. They felt like symbols of justice and liberty, of hope. Jane was the cloud of doom, the dark shading that threatened to creep in and snuff them out. Finally, Cal sighed. It might be easier to show you, he said, as he tapped a space just beside the bank of windows. Drawing this transition always used to frustrate Jane. The windows appeared as a solid wall when the blinds were shut, but melted away upon touch, first breaking into neat, slim panels like slats of a white picket fence. Then pieces would begin to break off, shimmering as they broke into smaller and smaller bits of dust, before fading into the depths of what was now clear and perfect glass. The city spread out beyond, as familiar as the back of Jane's hand. The view from their headquarters had been lifted directly from work. The one that Jane was looking at now was how it would appear from the break room. Jane had sat at a table and sketched this panorama 100 times. The sharp peaks of City Hall, stained orange in the setting sun. Regent Park, a 3-block square cut right out of the heart of the metropolis. The river, flitting in and out of view in the distance. Jane approached the window with caution. Night had blanketed the city. 1,000 lights winked through a shifting haze of smog, muddying the familiar landscape, but it was still enough. The park, City Hall, the skyline she'd committed to both memory and paper so many times over. Only one piece was different, a gap like a missing tooth in the heart of downtown. Several key buildings were just gone, leaving nothing but twisted, blackened metal that rose like skeletal trees after a wildfire. Jane touched the window, the glass cool beneath her fingers as she traced their lines. What happened? Dr. Demolition happened. Cal had come to stand behind her, his reflection hovering past her shoulder. I don't know how to tell you this, Jane, but you're on a parallel world. 3 weeks ago, Dr. Demolition developed a deadly weapon, one with the power to destroy a whole city block. We tried to stop him. We finally discovered where he was keeping it, but when we got there, he'd already moved it, Jane said. She was still staring out at the cityscape, her eyes instinctively seeking out the major landmarks. Along the edge of the gap, she spotted it. She pointed, her finger pressed against the glass. To there, the top of Woolfolk Tower. It wasn't much of a tower anymore. Half melted, nothing but a handful of twisted girders. Jane sought out Cal's eyes in the reflection. I'm right, aren't I? Cal nodded. Shock was written plain on his face. You're right. How did you? Because I wrote it. Jane turned around, putting the view to her back. Or I was going to write it anyway. That's the start of the Spectral Wars storyline. The first issue just came out. This time, it was everyone else's turn to look confused and incredulous. Marie pushed herself off the aquarium. You think this is some kind of game? Not a game, Jane said. A story. My story. Our story, she corrected herself in her head. But that wasn't worth getting into right now. Besides, Claire had never liked to claim credit, even in private, even when the best ideas were hers. Spectral Wars had been hers. The beginning of it, anyway. Jane never got to learn Claire's ending. She swallowed down the lump of remorse that had risen in her throat. Cal held up his hand, cutting off Marie before she could start again. Well, it's real here. Dr. Demolition is real, and so is the damage he's done. Jane couldn't help it. She laughed. Just once, just enough to get a death glare from Marie. Sure it is. And I suppose now you're going to tell me that you're really Captain Lumen. A wave of confusion crossed Cal's model-perfect face. No, Jane. You are. That's all I've got for you today. If you'd like to see what happens next, I am going to be giving away ebook copies of both this book and the sequel. Book 3 is going to come out this summer, so it's a great time to jump into the series. Thank you all so much.